But you hear the crowds cheering and clapping as the hearse came by. The hearse itself, purple flowers on the top, the word Aussie picked out in flowers on the side, and a single white hand-tied bunch of flowers at the back of the coffin. I'm joined in the studio by Paul Stokes, music journalist, and as we were listening to that cortege as it went past, Paul, Boston Brass, you reliably informed me they were playing Iron Man.
Yes, I think so, yeah. The Black Sabbath iconic song obviously had a second life in the film as well. So, I mean, just showing the reach, I think, of Black Sabbath and Ozzy Osbourne.
I mean, this is a funeral. It's a desperately sad time to mark the passing of somebody, but it was clear that he was going to do this in a rock and roll fashion, wasn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, being known as the Prince of Darkness, he was asked many times about what he wanted to happen when he went, and he was very adamant that when his funeral happened, it would be a celebration.
We're just going to pause because just to listen to the cheers. Paul, sorry, we cut you off in your prime there, just as the crowd was chanting Aussie, 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 and you were saying you were Prince of Darkness. He'd been asked many times about how he'd like to be remembered.
And he wanted a celebration, which sounds like exactly what he's getting. He said, you know, many people have had bad times in their life. I don't want this, when I go, to be this sort of downbeat thing. I don't mind about the music, but just make sure people are you know, having a good time. He was talking about having pranks, so who knows what we might find later on in the day. But yeah, no, and I think, you know, as the report from the Birmingham Mail was saying, you can just hear the local pride. I mean, one thing I know, all the people I know, no matter what genre, who are from that region, who make music, Ozzy Osbourne is such an important figure for Birmingham and that area, because he, A, showed it was possible, but B, there are very few musicians who get to invent their own genres, and with Black Sabbath, that's exactly what he did and paved the way for heavy metal.
Well, exactly. You know, it is where the phrase heavy metal came from.
Mm.
Here from this point down to the Black Sabbath Bridge, and that's where a lot of people have gathered here today. We think it might pause there, the cortege.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just shows the many lives of Ozzy Osbourne, you know, rock icon, reality TV star, you know, the whole thing with Ozfest, which, you know, made him a huge player in terms of global live music, promoting young metal bands coming through, young rock bands. He's had that thing. And then also, the unique thing I think about Ozzy Osbourne is he is a true rock icon. He is the Prince of Darkness, but he also gave across this really approachable, down-to-earth sort of personality. And it was amazing that you could be, you know, as we saw right at the end at Aston Villa, you know, be an icon, but also be this really approachable sort of guy. And I think that you can see people have responded to that today.
Let's listen to the band again as they come past. We were expecting that this might happen. The family, we think, are getting out here at the Black Sabbath Bridge to take a look at some of the flowers and the tributes that have been left to Ozzy Osbourne. Also, perhaps to engage with some of the crowd members who've come down here. I mean, the level of devotion from these fans, you can just hear it, can't you? And there, Sharon Osbourne, his wife, was his tour manager. Helped by her daughter Kelly. And son Jack also, and other daughter Amy. The family taking some time to look at some of the tributes that are on the flowers, and also to be greeted and comforted by the mayor of Birmingham there also. Clearly emotional, Sharon Osbourne there. Funeral difficult at the best of times, but this, compounded with the adulation from the crowds, must make it incredibly emotional. And as the family get back into the procession of 6 vehicles following the hearse, let's bring back in Paul Stokes, music journalist, who's here with me. And Paul, I mean, gosh, really emotional watching those scenes, weren't they? They looked absolutely floored by the wave of love that came off the crowd.
Absolutely. I mean, we've sort of known Sharon Osbourne as this sort of smooth operator, this real sort of beast of the music industry. And so to see her sort of wounded like that is, very moving. But I mean, it was interesting because the crowd, it sort of feels like a cross between an away day, a royal walkabout and a solemn procession, which is kind of everything that Ozzy Osbourne sort of represents, which is brilliant.
Well, we're talking about the children that came out of the hearse, and they are, all of them, we know them all because of that reality TV show, which is another element to his extraordinary legacy. It sort of created the genre of reality TV, didn't it?
Absolutely. The Osbournes are 25 years old this year, and you think...
Gosh, I can't believe it's that long.
I know, and it was like everyone in the world was watching it. I remember when we were sort of covering the programme, it was always like, can you get Jack on? Can you get Sharon? Can you get Ozzy? When people sort of announced it was going to happen, it was like, who cares? It's like, but the guy used to be Black Sabbath, and it just absolutely not only transformed reality TV, but the reinvigoration around Ozzy as this global icon. It was absolutely amazing, all by just being himself and swearing a lot and being annoyed at dogs a lot of the time, it seemed. I mean, it was so true to him.
It also means for those of us who maybe don't know much about Black Sabbath or aren't Black Sabbath fans, we feel a connection with the family because we've sort of watched those kids growing up, haven't we?
Absolutely, and it was held by him being himself.
Yes,
there was no like, I've got to pretend to be this amazing rock star, 24/7. He really let his true personality come across in that programme. I think that that's why it worked. And then just seeing his children's reaction to having this sort of iconic yet slightly embarrassing dad on camera, it was a really, really warm programme. It really kind of obviously it made them huge stars, and there were sort of consequences because of that. But there was a real warmth to the Osbournes, and it wasn't sort of reality TV in its sort of more exploitative mode. It was a real sort of window on this sort of unique personality in his family.
We're talking about his personality. You interviewed him about 5 years ago. What was he like?
Oh, he was amazing. Everything you want him to be. I mean, like I say, he was an icon, but he was also incredibly down to earth. It was for Q magazine, and they used to have this back page where you don't have to ask silly questions. And one of them was like, when was the last time you did something? So I had to ask Ozzy, when was the last time you bit the head off a bat? Because obviously it's the famous popular story. And the phone line went dead. And I was like, oh my God, I've offended. I didn't know it was possible. I've offended Ozzy Osbourne. What am I going to do? And I was thinking, well, I could end the piece there. Anyway, the phone goes about 5 minutes later. Ozzy, sorry, I was pressing this button to shut the window and it pressed it and cut you off. What were you saying? And I said, and I asked the question again. He went, that's a really stupid question. Next. And he was lovely. It was absolutely brilliant.
And we've talked about the fact that he was this icon of Birmingham. It looked to me actually like one of the members of Duran Duran looked like they were in that shot there. It may have just been a family member with rather large hair, but Duran Duran are from Birmingham also, aren't they? So it's entirely possible. And they certainly wrote on Instagram a tribute to him after he died, saying, Ozzy was a cat who had way more than 9 lives. Thanks for the ride, Ozzy. Love from the other Brummies. He brought so much joy, humour and raw power to the world and a life of many chapters. And that first chapter was the music, of course. And we slightly overlook at the band there. They are playing his music. They're playing Black Sabbath music. But what kind of musician was he? How did he change music?
Well, I mean, he started off more on the sort of rhythm and blues side at the end of the 60s, and he was in various bands at a time when, you could have you could be in one band and it could break up in the next band, and slowly but surely the sort of nucleus of Black Sabbath came together, and it was only with those sort of 4 personalities and just sort of tapping into a slightly darker thing. I think one of them was reading a book on the occult and had a really bad dream, which led to the song Black Sabbath, which obviously then gave the band the name and this kind of, the album and everything like that. And I think, what they just found they tapped into was by taking that bluesier sound and making it more dirgy, more darker, louder. I mean, that's the key. I mean, I think when people think of heavy metal, they think of this sort of huge amount of noise. But actually, at the core of heavy metal, there is this amazing sort of melodies and tunes, and almost sometimes going back to folk music, sometimes the way that their songs are picked out. And a lot of that comes back just to Ozzy Osbourne because of, his love of melody. He's a massive Beatles fan. And that really sort of translated into then the kind of, although it was darker, although it was heavier, there are beautiful melodies in the middle of Black Sabbath. And I think, Ozzy is a huge part of that, along with obviously Tony Iommi and his unique guitar playing style and the rest of the band.
Yeah, I heard Rick Wakeman on the radio this morning, and he was talking about that and how Yeah, it was mainly chords before Ozzy Osbourne came along and Black Sabbath came along, and that it did really sort of pivot the whole genre.
Absolutely, and it made a new genre because it was sort of rock music was going one way and had very sort of tradition coming out of blues, and heavy metal, and particularly where it expanded in the 70s and 80s. You know, it's this complete divergent path from where rock was up to that point, and is effectively a genre in its own right, and a massively, it's a brilliant genre, and it's massively huge, but it's kind of genre that, apart from like the Kerrangs of this world, none of music critics like me don't tend to be like, you know, they can be quite dismissive, and you look at some of the reviews they got at the time, and so people come to heavy metal. It is a community. No one tells you to like it, and the people that love it absolutely adore it, and I think that's a big part of the outpouring today. That sort of community, they treasure their heroes, you know, no matter how young or old they are. I was really always moved when I covered at Kerrang, and Ozzy would be as important to them as it would me to say when I was working in more trendier magazines, and we'd be all about the person of the day. Ozzy was always an icon in that community of music.
Yeah, so cool that he didn't have to be on any bandwagon. He was just himself, wasn't he?
Absolutely.